My name is Ari Brielle, and I'm a visual artist.
And you're currently showcasing at the Fort Works Gallery. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so we have kind of worked together in the past. I was in a group show of theirs a few years ago. So I was super excited when they reached out about this show because, for one, it's featuring such incredible talent. So that was an honor. But also, I just enjoy working with them, and I always love their programming. So I think we were set to drop off our works like right in the middle, like right after we went to Shelter in Place. So originally it was going to be just a standard show at the gallery. But with everything that was happening and all the like updates that we were constantly getting, they were like, let's just move it online. And so that's kind of how that happened, which is good. I think um, having access to shows online anyway is always a good thing.
I was super drawn to your work and just the images of these women that you're depicting. They're just striking, beautiful, but also strong and just kind of badass. Can you tell me a little bit more about them?
Yeah, well, thank you. So all of my work is thinking about women, specifically Black women, and the nuances that we all sort of like inhabit. Um, and I think with this work, I was really purposeful about making them very beautiful and making the colors very bright and um, and making the work sort of inviting. It was really important for me to make work where Black people could look at it and see themselves reflected in a really beautiful way, especially in an art space. That's just not something you typically see in a lot of fine art spaces. Um, and so I wanted people to feel beautiful and to feel important enough to be in a painting, but I also wanted to touch on the full range of our experience, which it's beautiful, but there's also a lot of oppression and um, a lot of sadness. So I kind of wanted to juxtapose like the beautiful, bright qualities with like content that was going into something a little different.
Well, that's a great segue to my next question, because I'm really curious about how you use art as a platform to critique social norms. So, can you tell me why that's important to you and how you're doing that through your medium?
Yeah, I think visual culture is just really pervasive um, and really important, and it can really affect a lot of change. And so I think it's just kind of a natural thing that like as a person in this body, I'm always thinking about these things because I'm faced with them day to day. So it was sort of like natural for me to put these issues into my work because it's what I experience all the time and like what my peers experience all the time, what my family experiences all the time. And so I think using these beautiful paintings to talk about it, I think is a good way to like get the conversation started and to um, and for it again going off the title of the body of work to be a safe place where we can discuss these things amongst each other and like find solace in each other and in the work. So yeah.
Yeah. So, Ari, do you have a particular painting that you really love? And can you tell me more about that?
I think the first one that comes to mind is called Homegoing Am I Next? And I think that one was really special for me because it was dealing with the recent murders of Black trans women in Dallas, and I wanted to touch on it because it was such an important thing, and it's not my experience, but it's people who are close to me in terms of like our identities, and I think it became one of my favorites because it took me so long to do it and like so long to think through it and like how to honor these people without like speaking over them or asserting any sort of like um, ownership or anything like that. I just wanted to like honor them and kind of touch on the fact that like people who have their same experiences are um, worth living and like worth saving and worth their people. And so I really like that piece because I actually got to show it to a family member of one of the women that's honored in it, and she like really appreciated it, and it was a really beautiful moment because it just affirmed that like my intentions were seen from someone who doesn't even know me, you know. So I really like that piece, and I think it was successful in that way.
Does it feel kind of like it's a form of giving voice and honoring and also like kind of empowering people who don't really get that platform very often or that recognition?
Yeah, definitely. Again, we don't really see these sorts of images in our everyday museums, you know what I mean? So for me to be able to touch on that a little bit and like help a few people, that's great.
What is your new norm looking like, living in isolation, and COVID-19?
Um, well, I first think I'm just very grateful for the fact that I do have my own space and I live with someone who I like and love. So I'm working from home now, and my boyfriend's in restaurants, so he's not working. And I know that like I have a ton of privilege in being able to be like, it's not that bad for me, you know. I'm very aware of that. But yeah, for me, it's not been too hard. I used to work from home, so readjusting to working from home has been pretty simple. And then also I've been spending a ton of time just like reading. Um, I've also been like working on new work, which is nice because I'm kind of always doing that, but like now I can really like sit with it and take my time. And then also I've been tending to my plants a lot. That's kind of like a goal of mine, is to become a really good plant mom.
That's a great goal. Yeah. So, tell me about some of these new pieces that you're working on.
Yeah. So the sort of the motif of my last body of work was safe place, and like what does safety mean, who is allowed to feel safe in their bodies, that kind of thing. And so right now I'm really focused on um, Black women and physical and mental health. There's like a long history of us in healthcare, and it's not the greatest. And so kind of exploring that and exploring ways that like mental health will manifest in your body. So I've been thinking a lot about the womb and us feeling like generational trauma through our wombs, and like that term, the fruit of the womb. At the gallery I work at, there was a show when I first started by Jennifer Steinkamp, and she had this piece called Womb, and it was literally just like fruits moving around and colliding with each other. And like I've been thinking about that a lot, and using that sort of fruit and like plant imagery to kind of discuss like our traumas with our wombs that can come up. And so yeah, like that, mental health, physical health, relationships with like the medical industry, just sort of thinking about all of those things in one and trying to like condense it a little bit.
Right. It sounds really interesting and an important discussion to have. And just really impressed with how the level of maturity that you bring to your work and the gravitas, because these issues are so important. And I think I'm just so excited to see, your success so far and to see what comes for you in the future too. So
Thank you. I appreciate
yeah,
it.
yeah, and thank you for sharing. And I wanted to ask you, so do you have any advice for our community on how to handle this new normal?
I think the biggest thing for me that I've really found to be important is that balance between like checking on your people and making sure like y'all are scheduling your FaceTimes or Zoom calls, but also giving each other space. I think this is such a scary and like uncertain time for people, and we're all kind of feeling its effects and feeling like heightened levels of anxiety and different things. So I think being able to understand that like if you're not hearing from someone, but you know that they're like healthy, give them that space a little bit, because they may just kind of be going through their own form of like healing or reckoning with like what's happening. So I think that's one thing, but also another thing is like don't feel like you have to be so productive right now. I know that's like being pushed a lot on social media in certain spaces, like this is the time to start your new business and like learn a new skill, and it's like that's cool if you have the capacity to do that, but if you don't, it's totally fine to like relax. We're going through something that's unprecedented, so like it's okay if you can't be a cog in this like capitalist machine right now, you know.
Right, right. Or pick up a new hobby or whatever. Just kind of,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think we're so used to being such busybodies all the time that to
Hmm.
actually just sit and be is revolutionary. And
Hmm.
yeah, so that's great advice. And do you think that there's any kind of silver lining or positive outlook from that we can take away from this pandemic?
Well, I hope that it inspires a lot of change, like when it comes to policy and like um, our safety nets for people and like what people have access to in terms of care and like health. I don't know about that, but I think like on a like slightly lower level, like for people who have this experience that's like privileged to like work at home and like not be on the front lines, I think it's a really, I think a silver lining is like what we were just talking about, like being able to really sit with yourself and like look at um, things that you may be facing that you may be like suppressing, or just kind of really dealing with like who you are and like what you want. I think that's kind of a positive, and being able to really slow down. Like you said, we're always like so used to being so busy and like always on the go, but I think giving yourself time to just be has been, I think that'll be a really important thing for a lot of people and really transformative.
Given this new normal, it's really important to support our artists in our community. A lot of galleries and other places to exhibit have been closed, and a lot of our artist friends have other gigs to kind of, pay the bills, and unfortunately, a lot of those jobs are not available now, so people are out of work. And I personally think that more than ever too, we need art to help us function, to give us inspiration and a sense of catharsis, and connection with each other. I encourage you to check out the Fort Works gallery link, and for more of Ari's work you can check out her website or DM her on Instagram, and we'll have the links there. Really appreciate you taking some time to
Of
speak with
course.
us today, and I look forward to seeing more beautiful work from you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.